It's hammer time. We're back here, a background noise, and we're going to discuss the second two of the Thor movies. Thor: Love and Thunder had just came out this past weekend, so we're going to discuss Thor: Ragnarok and Thor: Love and Thunder as a follow-up to last week's discussion on the first two Thor movies in the MCU. I'm your host, Joe.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Joseph, and I don't know, we might need to workshop that one, Joe. It's just a little.
All right. Well, it's okay because we'll have plenty of time of us continuing to do this thing where we can continue using catchphrases, and we definitely won't have a tragic and sad ending where we won't be able to use catchphrases anymore. So this is good. We have plenty of time to workshop it.
Fantastic.
What could go wrong?
Just as some bookkeeping notes, we are still doing this sort of infrequent schedule for the summer just because of how busy our schedules are on whether or not we'll have time to record, and also whether or not there will be stuff that we want to record. So we have an episode this week, and we'll probably have an episode next week on Stranger Things season 4. But after that, we may or may not have frequent episodes or not. So be on the lookout for when they come, and as always, we appreciate it when you listening when you do. So let's just go ahead and jump on in to the synopsis of these movies, and it's basically varying degrees of reboot. I think like Ragnarok is not a full hard reboot, but a pretty substantial reboot where we get rid of all of the characters that are secondary characters, basically. And we start off with Thor coming back. Well, actually, we start off with Thor, who's trying to figure out what's going on with Ragnarok, and he kills Surtur and takes his crown, and goes and locks it away in Asgard's vault. But he also discovers that Loki has taken over Asgard and is masquerading as Odin. So they have to go and they find Odin. We have a brief cameo with Doctor Strange, and then they find Odin, and Odin's like, yeah, by the way, I'm about to die, and you guys have an older sister, and when I die, she's going to escape and try to kill everyone. You have to figure out what to do about that. Bye! And he just turns into dust. And then immediately, Hela, goddess of death, shows up and demands fealty and demands that they let her take over Asgard, and they're like, no, please don't. And she's like, yeah, I will. And they try to Bifrost back to Asgard to get away from her. They accidentally take her with them, and both Loki and Thor get knocked out of the Bifrost as they're heading up to Asgard, which means their whole arc is them trying to get to Asgard to stop Hela. And Hela, basically, she kills off almost everyone on Asgard. Like, the only person from the previous movies on Asgard that we care about that survives is Heimdall, I think. That's the only person that survives.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have Loki and Thor land on Sakaar, which is this planet that's like at the bottom of all of the wormholes, I guess. It's the place where trash is just dumped from all of the other rest of the universe into this planet. And Thor gets basically voluntold to become a gladiator, fighting on behalf of Jeff Goldblum. And he ends up fighting the Hulk, because that's where the Hulk landed after Avengers 2. And Thor probably would have won if Jeff Goldblum didn't cheat by using some shock collar that they stuck on Thor, basically. But Thor is eventually able to get the collar off. He recruits a former Valkyrie, which I can't remember if the character herself has a name, because I just thought of her as the Valkyrie, but I'm sure that she's part of the Valkyries, like a group. So I'm assuming
I honestly don't know. I always call her Valkyrie.
Right. So they recruits Valkyrie, recruits the Hulk. They also sort of recruit Loki, but Loki does this thing where he's like a backstabbing, treacherous frenemy the whole time, and they end up they put the shock collar on him and leave him getting slowly electrocuted, and then take the ship and leave, which is oh man, you kind of feel bad for him, but also he fully deserves it at this point. I actually do appreciate how Thor has learned his lesson from all of the times Loki has played tricks, and he's like, yeah, I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to betray me. You're getting predictable. Come on, man.
Right.
Which is honestly, I think that is probably the best part of these movies. The best part of that movie, at least, is Thor figuring out Loki's deal and not falling prey to it. They take their ship, they get to Asgard. They're trying to fight Hela, and it's not working. And then Thor realizes, oh wait, we need to do Ragnarok in order to defeat Hela, because we can save all the people of Asgard by sacrificing the planet. And so they stick Surtur's hat thing into the eternal flame, and he grows as tall as a mountain, and he starts stabbing Asgard, and he and Hela have a fight, and it's very obvious that she's outmatched finally, because she's been murdering people the entire time without any difficulty. And then when that's happening, the people on Sakaar had like a revolution or whatever, and a bunch of them escape as well. They take a giant ship with them to Asgard. They pick up all the Asgardians, and then they fly off into Infinity War. Basically, that's like it ends right at the start of Infinity War, pretty much. Then so that's Ragnarok, which is the ending of proper Asgard. Appropriate, because that's what Ragnarok is supposed to be mythologically. Thor: Love and Thunder picks up pretty much just like how Ragnarok ends directly into Infinity War. Thor: Love and Thunder pretty much just picks up right after Endgame, where Thor has been traveling with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we get a little bit of the Asgardians of the Galaxy for a bit, but it's pretty much like Thor sitting around thinking about what he wants to do with his life, while the Guardians fight things and then come up to him and say, "Thor, we need you to win this fight for us," basically. And he does, so there's a little bit of that. We also get some backstory on a new character, Gore the God Butcher, whose daughter died because of dehydration in the desert, and then he meets the god that is the person that he worshipped, and the god's like, "Oh, yeah, I don't actually care about any of you guys." And then Gore gets the Necro Sword or the Necro Blade. Is it the
I think it's the Necro Sword.
Necro Sword. He gets the Necro Sword, which is a weapon that can kill. What?
I said the most comic book naming sword
ever. It is the most comic book name ever. I love it. I do like the name. He gets the Necro Sword, which is a blade that can actually kill divine beings, and he goes on a killing spree to murder all the gods, essentially. We unreboot things by bringing Jane Foster back in, except now she has cancer and she's dying, and she thinks that maybe holding Mjolnir will save her. Oh, by the way, completely forgot. Hela destroyed Mjolnir in Ragnarok. That was a thing that happened, and so that's one of the reasons Thor is super sad. But now he has Stormbreaker, so it's okay. But Hela, so Jane like picks up the pieces of, or she gets the pieces of Mjolnir, and it reforges itself, I guess. Kind of. Is really weird. And it makes her stronger while she's using the hammer, but it's actually slowly killing her even faster than the cancer is killing her, which you wouldn't think that would be possible, but apparently it is. And so they go on a few different quests trying to stop Gore. Excuse me. Thor learns that Sif, apparently she's not dead, but she was getting killed by Gore the God Butcher. That tells him he needs to go to Asgard after he saves her, because that's the next target. They meet Gore. Children get kidnapped, as one does, to be used as hostages by Gore to like manipulate the Asgardians. They go on some various quests in order to try to get the weapons and arms and manpower that they need to be able to kill Gore, and it ends up mostly being a waste of time, except they get Zeus's lightning bolt, so I guess that's cool. And then Gore steals Stormbringer, because it can summon the Bifrost, because he needs the Bifrost in order to open the gates to Eternity, so he can get to Eternity, so he can make a wish to kill all the gods at once. That's a thing that happens. Except in the fight against him, as Jane is dying, Thor's like, "I choose life. Maybe instead of wishing to destroy all the gods, you could wish to just get your daughter back. Wouldn't that be better?" And then Gore's like, I guess I'll not be a terrible person. And he wishes for his daughter to come back. Jane dies, and then Thor adopts Gore's daughter because Gore dies from the fights, from the injuries he suffered during the battle. And then we finally get to the title of the movie, Love and Thunder, because Love is the daughter of Gore, and then Thor is Thunder. So they're Love and Thunder as they go off, father and daughter, adoptive father, adoptive daughter, going into battle against, I don't know, some random aliens, I guess. And then there's a plot hook, or there's a cliffhanger hook in the mid-credit scene for possibly Hercules trying to kill Thor. I think that's it. I think that's all the stuff.
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
Jane made it to Valhalla.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Jane made it into Valhalla. So I guess maybe that'll be relevant, maybe not. I don't know if that actually means anything. Like, I don't know.
That means Gore's wrong, or that Sun God guy's wrong. It's like, yeah, there's nothing afterwards. And then it's just like, no.
We know that at least people who worship the Norse gods who die in battle with a weapon in their arms, a weapon in their hands, can get into Valhalla. So there's at least one afterlife for some people.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and the Wakandans.
Oh yes, the Wakandans do have
That's
an
right.
afterlife. I forgot about that. Yeah, they all turn into panthers, I guess. So yeah, that's what happens in these movies, and there's a lot more nonsense that happens. I didn't even mention Korg the entire time, who's a hilarious character, but
Yes.
really
He's cool.
isn't relevant to the plot. So yeah.
Now,
Joe,
how can we not mention Korg? He ties into the Marvel Studios' greatest partnership, Fortnite.
No.
I don't think
Stop
we've ever
that.
actually mentioned Fortnite on this show, and I was very happy about that.
Why did you have to ruin it? We had a good streak. We had a good thing going.
We like Fortnite. We like Fortnite.
Do we?
Is there a we?
Is
The royal we. Speaking of royalty, transition.
okay?
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to get away from Fortnite since you guys seem to not like it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Ragnarok. It's certainly, I think, at the very least, Ragnarok is the most fun of at least of the first three Thor movies. We could talk about Love and Thunder next, but we'll talk about Ragnarok first. Of those first three, Ragnarok is the most fun because like the first two are kind of self-serious in a way that makes they're silly because they're so serious. But Ragnarok is like is playing itself humorously from the start, I think.
Yeah. Well, Ragnarok's just a very impressive feat in general because if I'm remembering right, at the time when all the other Marvel films were coming out, Thor was pretty much a lower tier franchise at that point. You got in Thor 1 and Thor 2, didn't excite people as much. Everyone was more excited for your Iron Mans or your Captain Americas, and even Guardians at that point. Thor hadn't become as exciting because the first one was good, the second one not so much, so people weren't really as big of a fan of the super serious mythology films that they were doing. So Taika Waititi comes in and somehow manages to reboot Thor's narrative and tone without changing the actors or changing the effect the series has on the MCU. It's really an impressive feat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And what is it? This is the first, aside from Guardians, of course, it's like this was the foray into the more cosmic stuff. And, this was a lot of fun, really. And you're right, because I think people were more hyped for the Ant-Man sequel than they were, which is saying something, than they were for like another Thor movie. It's like, yeah, there's Thor.
Yeah, and so I think it definitely helped them rebooting and changing the tone to be something a bit more like Guardians, because now you have the two cosmic series having similar tone. So I think it works.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I wonder if that was the reason they tried that. If they're like, okay, Guardians worked and it was goofy, so we're gonna try doing goofy with Ragnarok and see if that works.
Yeah,
I wonder if that was the impetus. Maybe, I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah, you kind of got to wonder how much of it is like Disney saying, okay, let's, we don't really know what the future of this particular character is. This worked. It made money. That sounds more Disney to me. It made money, so let's go that route and hire some other screwball director like James Gunn. Screwball in a good way, at least.
Yeah.
And then there's like, okay, we want to work with this random this random New Zealand director or whatever, who's good at, I don't know, making serious things comedic. Because what is it? One of his early films is
Oh
like,
yeah,
what is it? What We Do in the Shadows, and it's like
Right.
a bunch of vampires just palling about in, I don't know, some random town. It's just like, okay, let's do that, but with Thor, I guess. I don't know. It's it's a little hard to discern, but either way, you can't argue with the results, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume this was not their original plan. I assume they tried. I don't know how many films they were planning on doing, or maybe they were just trying to do each film. They were just taking one film at a time. But yeah, I definitely think their plan was not to change up his tone, except for that the first two films did not do super well, as well as they liked, and his character was not as popular. So that's where the change came in. And at least with Ragnarok, I think it was for the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I do think there's a problem that comes into that, which is because they're being goofy, are very, I almost want to say irreverent with Thor, and I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like there's a time where when he's in Valkyrie's ship, right,
Mhm.
and he wakes up and his like face is smushed into the glass, and he's just a goofy nobody, face smashed into the glass, and it's like mocking him. We get scenes that are funny. Like there's a funny scene where he's getting his hair cut by Stanley. And at first he's like, "You will not touch the hair of the Lord of Thunder. Please don't touch my hair." He's like, "Please don't cut my hair." Like, and he's like whimpering and begging. And it's like, it's goofy and it's silly, but it's also like, I don't think that's how Thor would act, really.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that where some of it lands, like some of it is Thor being goofy and it lands, but some of it is like Thor throwing a ball at a window to try to break it and hitting himself in the face and knocking himself to the ground, which again is funny, but it's like, I don't know, it's I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about this.
I mean, for me personally, when it came to Ragnarok, I felt like more of it felt funny than actually goofy. There were little things like you mentioned, Stanley cutting his hair and him, really freaking out. It's like, okay, that was slightly goofy, but I feel like most of the stuff they put in that was humorous was actually funny. Like him throwing the ball against the window. You'd think that would work, but it didn't. And I feel like that wasn't Thor being stupid. I just thought that was a joke that landed very well. And I feel like that was the case with most of the humor in this. Whereas, unfortunately, when you take something like Love and Thunder, I feel like more of the humor is more on the goofier side than the actual genuinely funny side.
Yeah, I think like that's the thing is I think there are seeds of it in Ragnarok, and it's not as blatant. Ragnarok is more just funny,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the funny becomes from people making honest mistakes, like that, like Thor. Like, well, I guess we'll just use this as Thor throwing the ball and hitting himself in the face as our representative sample here.
Sure,
but it's like, okay, that's an honest like thing that could happen. But there are seeds of it that lead into Love and Thunder where it's like, maybe not. But we'll talk about that in a bit. I'm sure we're not done with Ragnarok.
Yeah, and in terms of, oh man, that's not like Thor. I kind of think it's like, I'd agree with you if I knew how Thor would react other than hitting stuff with a hammer.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's also fair.
Yeah, other than him interacting with Loki, which we talked about last episode. It's like, oh yeah, other than that stuff, it's like, I mean, Thor's a warrior prince or whatever. And what is it? Thankfully, there was in terms of, we were talking about reboot before, this is almost a reboot of the same story of Thor 1. Not that he goes from being unworthy. I mean, the hammer's gone, or like he doesn't have the hammer for almost the entire movie, and then he's fish out of water in this gladiator trash planet. And I like that most of the comedies derive from that instead of, I don't know, instead of it being almost forced. It's like, oh man, he's acting funny on Earth. You don't slam coffee cups into the ground. That's crazy. And more of just like, okay, he's the one slightly sane person on this planet of just pure madness. And that says something, because he's certainly not that sane. He's still, what is it? People I'm thinking whenever he interacts with the Grandmaster, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, it's the God of Thunder. Oh, look out! He's gonna hit you with the sparkles." It's just like, yeah, these guys have no idea who he is. He thinks he's just some schlub who fell out of a portal, and well, he kind of is, and that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, the very first interaction he has with a bunch of random people who are going to eat him, right? Like,
Right.
What? All right, I guess it worked.
It's interesting with something that I appreciate about it is you have Thor's known as very much like a great warrior in these first two films, and he'll call himself the God of Thunder and all that. But I feel like this is the film where he actually realizes that he's a god and truly embraces that. And I like sort of that journey that they focus on that.
Just that brings up another thing that I know we're going to talk about the other movie, but I think both movies do it very well. Of just sometimes Marvel movies, it's just action set piece, dialogue between action set piece. In the end, it was the friends we made along the way, and in the end, doing credit scenes. This one actually had a theme, a through line of Thor developing as a person after the death of his father.
Right.
And, you know, like coming into his own as, well, and then we'll talk about this later, but like coming into his own as the future king of Asgard. And then, you know, it was good. And him realizing he doesn't need the hammer until he needs the axe. And until he doesn't become king. And then until he does, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
Right. So it works very good by itself.
Yeah.
When you start adding the other films onto it, it unfortunately tends to suffer a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But I do want to briefly mention, because you mentioned him with the Grandmaster. This is definitely Jeff Goldblum's zone, in my opinion. It's basically him, just as in with most things, he's just playing himself, but it absolutely works for the tone of the film.
Yeah.
So the Grandmaster is just a hilarious character.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It works perfectly. Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum is exactly what the Grandmaster should be. Just this like completely this almost sane person, but also simultaneously completely unhinged in this like chaos. Like, oh, I pardon you from life. Incinerate someone with the melt stick, and like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay.
Topaz, I thought this one was a teleporter. Why did you give me the melt stick?
I could have also seen that happening.
Yep.
Just like, oh well, I guess this guy's dead now. Oh well. And then like at the end, in the end credit scene where the revolution has overthrown him, and he's like, "Congratulations, everyone! Can't have a revolution without someone to overthrow. So good job, everyone. Let's call it a draw."
That being the last line of the film is just great. Just yeah.
I do have a question for you guys, though. Something I want to a question that I want to rant about, because we mentioned like this is where Ragnarok is where Thor like comes into his own as a god of thunder, right? And we also have Hela as the goddess of death. Both of them are described as having their powers come from Asgard, and that seems to make sense for Hela because she gets like visibly. Like, she steps foot on Asgard and her patched and tattered clothing, like, instantly heals itself. And she's able to manifest stronger and stronger, I don't know, death spikes. I guess that's what they're called.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever her power is where she can summon things to stab people with, she gets better at it, right? She's making bigger and bigger stuff.
Like, right. It's the first time she does, like, the helmet hair trick thing, right?
Yes. Yep. That's when she gets on.
That was really cool.
Asgard. It's a cool effect. I really do like the effect of her like not stabbing her fingers, like she's just moving her arm and a sword appears in her arm because that's her power and she can just do that thing. That's cool. Great effect. Where does Thor get more powerful on Asgard? Shouldn't he be obviously more powerful than her because he's been living on Asgard for prolonged periods of time?
So my thought on that is I can't explain it for how he has power after Asgard's destroyed. Not really sure how we're going to explain that one, but the way I will give them a pass for Ragnarok is obviously she gets back to Asgard before he does, and so she is on there for a much longer period of time, while he is off there for a much longer period of time. So by the time that he gets back to Asgard, she, I'd assume, is more powerful, and as he is on there for a longer period of time, he suddenly gets more powerful.
We could be going by stupid Flash rules where it's like, oh man, the more speedsters there is or something, or the more people who use Asgard power on Asgard, the less powerful each individual is. I don't know. It's kind of just like, I mean, Thor's kind of, I guess, just the fact that he can be, I guess, the strongest outside of Asgard because he's got a connection to Earth or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like it doesn't make any sense. It's like,
Now, see, this is the sort of thing that I think the sort of reason why they kind of went away from the serious stuff, because between Thor and Hulk, it's like, okay, listen, they're too strong. We just we don't. It's either we don't care or just I don't know.
yeah. There aren't actually credible threats to them unless there aren't actually credible threats to them. There are incredible threats, as like literally not credible. Incredible Hulk, right? But also literally not credible, right? Like not believably strong,
Right.
Because like hella doesn't make any sense. If she and Thor both get their powers from Asgard, then like they should be equally strong when they're both on Asgard. And if only she gets her powers from Asgard, why does only she get her powers from Asgard? It doesn't make any sense.
Where does Thor get his powers from?
Be,
I don't know.
He gets it from inside himself. He's not the god of hammers after all.
Good grief. The answer is the powers make exactly as much sense as they need to in order for you to be able to watch the movie without asking too many questions. That's actually the answer.
Sure.
We could also go full nerd mode and be like, oh man, Hela's the first child of Odin, so she's stronger, and then Thor's the second one. Yada, yada, yada. I don't know.
Sure, I guess.
Let's roll with it.
Let's just roll with that.
All right. Well, speaking of rolling with it, should we roll on to the next movie? Or do we have any last thoughts on Ragnarok?
But big monster.
Yeah. Well, that is funny. Yes.
And that's all.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, just, it was pretty much. It was a very solid reboot. Korg, of course, we already mentioned, was excellent. Loki was great. All the characters were great, and this was just proof that not only can Chris Hemsworth do serious very well, he also has excellent comedic timing.
Yep.
Yes. Surprisingly, they talking about they let Thor shine. They let Chris Hemsworth shine. They finally gave him something to do.
Yeah.
I read somewhere, I heard someone mention Chris Hemsworth is the most patient of the Marvel actors. He's just been like, all right, I'll put up with this. All right, I'll put up with this. All right, I'll put up with this. All right. Oh, we have a fun movie? Yes, finally.
In spite of all that's happened, he's the only one of the the big four to still be getting movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. And speaking of that movie, Love and Thunder is a mess. Like it is.
Yeah.
It is a complete. It is just a mess, and it's not saying that it's bad. It is saying that it's a mess. And the reason I'm saying that it's a mess is that we have things like the opening where we watch a man watch his daughter die of dehydration in front of him, bury her, and then learn that the gods that he believed in are actually fake losers who don't care about him. All right, we see that happen on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to wacky Thor with his goofy shenanigans with the Guardians. Aha, so fun. They're being silly, and Thor's like sitting on a rock doing nothing until they need his help, and then he accidentally destroys the temple of some people, right? So goofy. And then we cut to Jane, who is dying of stage 4 cancer. You're like, I'm sorry, is this a comedy or a tragedy? What is going on here?
Right.
Get tonal whiplash from this movie probably every 15 minutes. You get tonal whiplash from this movie.
Yep. Yeah. It feels like some of the old Thor movies leached a little bit into this one, and I don't want to say it's because Jane Foster's back. However, no, it's really not. But I wonder if it's like, I wonder if someone took it to heart. It's like, oh man, the other one was so goofy and crazy. We need to make things a little more serious. And it's like, well, no, things were goofy and crazy in the last movie, but they also had some weight to them. Like I wouldn't say that the like cutting back to Asgard where Hela's imposing her regime or whatever was like tonal whiplash. It was more because what is it? It was just more of like, okay, it's going on, but it's not out of place.
Yeah.
Because you're right,
Yeah.
it's there was a couple of these things that did seem kind of out of place, and I don't know how you I really don't know how you remedy that because you need Gore's introduction, which I thought was great, probably because I'm a big fan of Christian Bale, but still, it's just that's really good, really. It's just it reminded me of the old Thor stuff in the good way, just sort of like this mythological tale that's just kind of larger than life of like just a dude who wants to kill the gods that wronged him or something. It's like, oh, this is crazy. And then it's like and then we've got the intro montage of literally all the movies backed by what is it, a meme song.
Yeah, it's because Christian Bale commands the stage every scene that he's in, right? He's undeniably the best.
Remind me when we get back to him. I got something I got to bring up.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess we're talking about him now, or we can go into tonal whiplash, focus in on that, like because there's so much.
I kind of got us away from that. I'm sorry. It's just he's the American Psycho. What can I say?
Yeah, well, there's so much. There's internal problems even within that. Like we have a scene where, like her cancer is progressing and she's put down the hammer. She's not using the hammer, right? She's put it down and like you see her all like emaciated and pale and obviously dying, and she picks up the hammer and she gets all buff again and she smashes the sink in anger. And it's like, yeah, that's probably like she's a relatively right. She's a relatively young person who's dying way before her time, and she's got this thing that can make her look stronger for a time, but it's also killing her even faster. Like, yeah, she's angry, right? That's the only thing that's helping, but it's also making it worse. And then, like immediately after, she's joking around with Valkyrie, and she doesn't seem angry. She seems like she's goofing it up with her, and maybe that's a coping mechanism. But also in other areas, she's not nearly as like that was a good scene of her being angry, but it doesn't hold through. She's still bantering and joking around in a way that it's not like she's using dark humor as a coping mechanism. It's like she's using humor and not addressing the situation sometimes. Like I don't know, it's a little weird, and it's part of the tonal conflict. Like it's not even real humans do use dark comedy in order to like cope with trauma, right? That's like the thing that people do, but that's not what it felt like to me watching that. It felt like they didn't actually want her to dealing with the trauma until she died, basically.
It seemed like they wanted to lighten the mood while also acknowledging, oh man, a serious thing happened. Joke.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe it would have been better if they didn't acknowledge it at first, and then they had their little thing on the boat. It's like, oh man, you're paying for that sink when we get back, haha. And then they like, I don't know, clink swords or whatever they did. Like, oh, that would have been a relief or whatever. I don't know. It's maybe that brings up the other thing of, was this movie too? I personally didn't feel that way, but I've seen some people saying that the pacing was a little off. I don't think so. I thought it was all right compared to, I don't know, in terms of the Marvel vein, I guess, compared to something like but yeah, it's like, did we need a little more time to let things stew or what?
I think well, I don't think it's a problem of we needed more time to let things sit. I think that, well, because I don't think this movie needs to be any longer, but I think that there are, maybe we could, if we cut out the Olympus, that's not Olympus, it's Omnipotent City, I think.
Yeah, that's it. That sounds right. Yeah.
Which is a kind of garbage name, but whatever. All powerful city. That's literally what that would mean. I don't know. It's kind of silly. But if we cut out that section, because that's all goofball nonsense, right? That's all just silliness. If we cut out that entire section, then maybe we can have more time to let the serious things be serious. and have time for there to be jokes and have time to transition in and out of them. Like Infinity War has serious stuff happening and it has jokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have all of the characters, and so we have to balance all those tones. And it has times where it transitions in and out of those things, and it feels smooth. And I think Love and Thunder could have done something like that, but it has to cut out some nonsense to have those breathing moments. So it's not really a pacing problem as much as the tones are not given. They don't blend rough. They don't blend smoothly. They're very like sharp and jagged cutoffs.
Yeah. There wasn't within that 2-hour time frame. The balance was not there. The balance between, which I think was handled much better in Ragnarok, the balance between the serious and the comedy was not handled nearly as well here. I definitely think there were more goofy moments than serious moments, but they still wanted you to take the film seriously, but also have a good time, even though half, if not most, of the jokes were more like almost a Minion level of comedy.
Hey, don't you disrespect Minions like that.
Oh, I love the Minions, but not in my Thor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's other problems too with this tonal comedy. Like, there's a scene where they're fighting to try to get Zeus's lightning bolt or thunderbolt. I think they call it thunderbolt. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
You will call it thunderbolt if you're going to use it.
Getting Zeus's big zappy stick. They're trying to steal Zeus's zapping stick, and Zeus kills quote unquote Korg, but it doesn't feel sad. It's like, it's just a thing that's happening in a fight, and then like 30 seconds later they reveal that only his face is alive and the rest of it is just rocks. It's like, okay, I guess you got away with it because you didn't actually kill him, but
they weren't going to kill Korg.
I know, but why would you make it obvious to us that you weren't going to kill him, even when you showed him maybe dying? And then also when they kill Zeus, it doesn't feel like it has gravitas because he does also not dead. Spoiler, like apparently
he's also a god. So
right, I guess gods can take a lightning bolt to the chest from a divine weapon. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
Feels more like bits than. It feels more like a bit, kind of like, oh man, I accidentally hit this guy with a car. Instead of, oh man, that. I mean, I don't want to bring it down to this level, but it felt a lot like Chewbacca getting blown up and then coming back 2 minutes later. From Rise of Skywalker, a little bit like that. But I don't want to put that on this movie on the same level as that.
No, not
nearly as bad. Yes.
It was much shorter too.
Oh yeah,
that helps.
Too. Yeah, it helped a lot, God. And I think, since we're talking about the God City or whatever, a top 10 cameos in that's actually not what I'm talking about. I don't know. It almost felt like kind of there wasn't a payoff there. I mean, they got the lightning bolt or whatever, and that was the big thing. And then we got the sequel bait or whatever. But kind of like how the gladiators eventually came back to be a big part of the end of Ragnarok. I kind of thought, I didn't think the gods were going to come save him, but I thought Gore was going to get denied the entrance into eternity or whatever. He'd still have the Necro Sword, and then he'd somehow get back to the city and start just decking these guys left and right. Because the first thing you see is like with the setup or whatever is like, oh man, a city full of gods. What is it? That's probably Gore's target or whatever. And then it's like, even they even kind of acknowledge that it's like, oh, we can't let you leave because Gore will find us. And it's like they're kind of building up to like, okay, something's gonna happen. Gore's gonna wind up in the city, and it's about to go down. And it's like, oh man, that would be crazy. That would be our serious moment of the film. But then it's just like, the only thing we kind of got out of that was a weapon, a couple of Greek hedonist jokes, and Korg face.
Right.
It would have made so much more sense if Gore gets on there and he fights his way through to get the key. That's what I thought was gonna happen. He's gonna fight his way through them to get the key so he can get to eternity, so he can like finish the job. Maybe.
Yeah.
I thought I thought like Zeus had the key, something like that. In turns out that Stormbreaker's the key, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
the Bifrost. The only way to get to the Bifrost.
Once they know that, once they see that the Bifrost is the key, why don't they immediately leave and go to Eternity themselves and use the Bifrost?
I'll give you that. They try to, and
to wish the kids back. Like, right? Why not? Like, just do that. Like, I don't know. It's dumb.
Well,
and it gets tricky too with these when them introducing these new corners of the universe that have so much power, because then you think, well, why didn't Thanos just go to the center of the universe to make the wish for half humanity to be wiped from existence instead of collecting all the stones?
Because it's easier than getting the fancy axe, because it wasn't made before Thanos did his stuff. I don't know.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point. How would you open it without Stormbreaker?
To be fair, it just said the Bifrost, like as in you either wrangle it from Asgard, like you kill Heimdall and wrangle it from Asgard to open it up, or you use the fancy X thing. I don't know. Again, and then that kind of goes back to kind of the old Thor stuff kind of messing with the new stuff. It's like, the Bifrost. You know, that thing that only Thor's axe can do. Wait, no, haven't we seen that before? You know.
Yeah.
It's kind of that old. It's almost an old continuity leaking its way into this one.
Well, there's a big problem with that. There's a big problem with like continuity inconsistency. This is actually I noticed this problem in Ragnarok, which is that in the first Thor movie, they talked about Thor is like hyping them up so they can go to Jotunheim, right? And he says, and who proved wrong all the haters who said, or all the doubters who said that a woman couldn't be a warrior? And Sif says, I did. And Thor's like, yeah, but I supported you.
Right.
But then in Ragnarok, we learned that there's an entire group of Valkyrie, all lady warriors that have been a part of Asgardian armaments. Like, obviously they're all dead, right? Because they all died fighting off Hela to get her trapped. But like, wouldn't there be legends?
Say he wanted to grow up to be one of them.
Yeah, Thor said
but
he
not
wanted...
like that. Like,
but like, so obviously they're still known about, even if there aren't any new ones. So why would Sif have to like? I don't know. Maybe she's proving like the Valkyrie failure made them think that women can't be warriors, and Sif had to reprove that they could. Maybe that's how you wrangle that. But it's actually clear that they have no coherent like continuity there. That's the actual problem. And this is we're seeing this here with like, we'll introduce the power of infinity, or not infinity, of eternity, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, infinity, eternity, like basically the same thing. The Infinity Stones, the Eternity face, I don't know.
The Eternity statue.
The Eternity statue, I guess. Just some all-powerful magical nonsense that can do exactly what it needs to do for the plot, and precisely that and nothing more.
It can only do it once.
Yeah, and it can only do it once, because it's whoever gets there first gets their wish, and that's the one wish for all the time in the universe? For all eternity?
And is it like so it's only the first person who gets there, so nobody else can use that wish thing ever again, I guess?
Yeah, but then why are there legends about it? If only one person ever in the history of trillions of things that have lived in the universe can use this wish, how do people know about it? How do they know it works?
Gore did find the temple. He found like the temple that had all the writings. He just couldn't get in, and I don't know. We're getting into like the deep comic lore stuff, because it's like the Necro Sword might have known, because the Necro Sword is actually the sword of the guy who's in charge of all the symbiotes who have a hive mind. Yada yada. Yeah, we're getting bogged down a lot, and normally I would be like, oh yeah, this is a bunch of inconsistent stuff, but at the very least, it gave us a very cool set piece. The Shadow Realm fight.
Oh, absolutely.
That was great.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm willing to put to bed all my nitpicks for the middle act of this film and say at least it was leading up to that.
I do actually appreciate how even before that, when Gore captures all three of them, like he's actually saying things to them to demoralize them that are actually meaningful to those characters.
Yeah, not right? Just like I'm evil, you're gonna lose, lol.
Yeah, he's cutting them down in very personal ways that would actually undermine them. They seem to get over it fairly quickly because it's a Marvel movie, so
Yeah.
nothing actually nothing lands like that for long. But
Sure.
it actually is a very well done section. Again, this is tonal conflicts, but gore is the best part of the movie. Christian Bale is the best part of the movie, I think, by far. Which segues back to Joseph. You wanted to stick a pin in that. I think we circle back to that.
I'm gonna pull out the black whispering pen and what is it? And talk about it's like I've got a feeling that this movie was even shorter because I don't think it felt like to me the scene where Gore just kind of shows up and rips the head off the weird shadow creature to be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna scare you." I feel like that was added in because test audiences thought Gore was too scary and too serious, because that felt completely out of left field to me. It just like Gore is never that goofy again. He's always deathly serious or slightly sardonic.
Yeah.
Like I say, when he's cutting them down with words or whatever, it's like he's never that hammy again. He almost felt like he almost felt a little bit like Hela those few times, which was fine because Hela. I understand she's more of had more of like a, I don't know, more of a bratty child kind of thing. Not really, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna break everybody's toys.
Right.
She's just like Azula and Zuko almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thor. Kind of. I think also it doesn't make any sense because if Gore's motivation is his dead daughter, like it makes sense that he kidnaps the kids to punish the gods because they didn't save his daughter, so he is taking their kids to punish them. Like that makes sense. But the fact that he's like tormenting them, that feels like not what he would do. Like he would capture them because he's using them as leverage to hurt the people he actually hates, but he doesn't want to mess with the kids. And also it doesn't fit. It's incongruous with his character. It doesn't really fit. It doesn't serve any point other than to have him be goofy in a creepy way. I don't know. It's very weird.
It would have been a good way to show that the Necrosword, even though he was kind of messed up and he wanted to kill the gods, like the Necrosword was corrupting him or something. But it's just, it's like there's not even like a gradual show that. And no, I don't want like 20 minutes of him like wrestling morally. I understand that's not going to happen in a Marvel Thor movie, but it's just like hey, maybe he's just like, okay, what is it? I know it was I got the kids, but I don't want to torment them or something. And then like the shadow creatures are like, yeah, blah blah, something, show the gods what for, make them scared. I don't know, something. And then he's just like, okay, fine, I'm full evil now. And then that goes to the scene in the Shadow Realm. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I will say
there's a lot of I don't knows for this because it's like poor execution. There it is again. It's like that's a good word for it because there's good stuff in here. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, I mean, I will give the film credit for not doing the expected action at the end there by having Gore save Jane, because it definitely seemed like they were setting that up at the end there. The thought that's what he was going to do. He's like, well, if I can't have love because my daughter's dead, at least they can have love. Again, Thor seems, very sad and all that stuff, and you think, Gore might do that, but instead he saves his daughter, which makes sense for Gore's character. And obviously, we would have preferred that he saved Jane for Thor's sake. That was definitely, I think, a good example of the film subverting expectations, because I feel like it seemed like if it was any other film, that's what they would have done. But no, he saved his daughter because that makes sense.
Now, I honestly would have thought some movie magic or whatever would have saved Jane too, but it's like, well, and what is it? Then they go off and they have their kid or whatever. But I'm actually kind of glad they let that happen. Well, mainly because I don't like women. Once again, no, but mainly the real reason actually being is just it worked. It worked with the themes. I think it would have cheapened them if what is it, Jane wound up making it, and then of course there's that good resolution at the end there. It's like,
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine seeing her in Valhalla because it means she's actually dead and the sacrifice actually meant something, right? Because if they bring her back, then it's like, oh yeah, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can
Yep.
you can kill your girlfriend and have her too.
All
I
right,
guess-
Ted Bundy.
Gosh.
uh,
There's a metaphor here somewhere. However, I have to go through the ribcage to find it. Oh God. Anyway,
oh, all right. Let's.
hey
get out of
guys,
that.
did you know that Chris Hemsworth's daughter is actually the Gore's daughter?
Oh, yeah. I think yes. I think
I think
did
I'd
know
heard that.
Did
Yeah.
you know how I figured it out?
How?
Because she can't act. I'm kidding. She wasn't that bad. I know it's a child. Don't throw rocks
Yeah,
at me,
like,
internet people.
So you hate
But-
women and children? I keep
You hate
Yes.
women and children. Wow.
I'll
Yeah.
have you know, in the description, you need to put starring Joseph, known woman and child hater.
Yes.
All right.
But
Hey, speaking of kids, I don't believe for a second that every child in the final battle was worthy of the power of Zeus, even for a limited time. There should have been at least 3 or 4 kids who didn't get the power and had to hide in the corner while the other kids fought.
oh man.
Also, like, I feel conflicted about that because on the one hand, he's giving them a cool power up, so they can't die, right? They have god
Mhm.
power, so they're not going to
Yeah.
die. But he's still using child soldiers, right?
Listen, if Big Boss can do it, so can we.
I-
Metal Gear, some of
It's
you
like-
know.
It's like Thor's like the worst babysitter ever.
Yeah, he's like, hey kids, you know, I'm supposed to protect you. Actually, you're gonna protect yourselves. Get out there and go fight the bad guys.
This is a
I'm
gun,
also-
sir. Oh, I know.
I know. Point. You point
That's
that
actually
into
worse
those
than
people.
a gun. That's God powers.
Yeah, this is a teddy bear with laser beam eyes.
That was hilarious. I honestly didn't expect that. I thought we were gonna set up for like a really dark joke. Like one of them were gonna say, "We're gonna die" or something, because like he's just setting them up like a little column of child soldiers, and it's just like, "I'm sorry, what's your plan here?" And it's
Yeah,
like, I can take that, because I honestly thought after he did that, he would have transitioned into, he would have asked Valkyrie to become king, because he did an Odin thing. He like bestowed power, like kind of like Odin did to his hammer or whatever. It's like, you know, if I don't know, but yeah, that was the biggest surprise to the movie. It was hilarious, but it's just like, oh yeah, I guess that happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's some symbolic thing about these kids like having been afraid and then finally get the power. They see that they have the power to fight the shadow monsters and they're actually not that scary. Maybe
we'll
there's
go
something
with that.
symbolic in there.
Hmm.
But also, you know, yeah.
Also, Taika Waititi's kid said, "I want to be in a Marvel movie," and he's sitting at his desk. What is it? Typing up. It's like, okay, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? I've got a wonderful idea, and then he just gets literally every single child of the cast and crew and puts them in the movie.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think I already mentioned this to you, Joe, but it's kind of a bummer after this film because I'm not really excited for Marvel films anymore.
oh,
Yeah.
that bad, huh?
It's a shame. After this and Doctor Strange, it's like with them not really having a goal, not leading up towards anything, and with them not having that, just seems like each film is pretty much just wandering aimlessly. I can hope the new Guardians Ant-Man films are fun, but after the disappointment that both again this and Doctor Strange were, while they were fun, they were messy, and definitely their previous films were definitely better as far as tone and story. Yeah, it's frustrating because we had a solid run of at least 10 years where the Marvel films were what we looked forward to. We were all very excited, or at least I was. I feel like most Marvel fans were.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, another Marvel film comes out. Guess we'll see. Marvel has almost become, I'm not going to say DC, but close to it, where it's like you can't expect that same level of quality anymore, because it used to be each film, or most of them with the Marvel ones, I would probably give like a solid 8. I had that much fun with them. It's like each of them were really consistently 8 or higher for me. On like out of a 10 scale, as far as my level of enjoyment, it was usually pretty consistently in that same range. And these days, it's hard for a Marvel film to even get up to an 8. It's a struggle. So
Yeah.
it's very frustrating.
We've hit the quantity over quality phase, and it's a shame because it's like they're more concerned with pumping out TV shows now that are guys, the effects are on quality of a film. Well, I guess they are, but they're so weak in other areas that they might as well not have been made, and you could have put resources towards. Listen, what they kind of if I was in charge of the Marvel Universe, which I'm not going to be because my name's not Kevin Feige, I am not 53 years old or however old he is, and I have not been in the film industry for whoever knows how long he has been. But it's like, as much as they really wanted to capitalize on people's still interest on this, almost rabid, rabid loyalty to it, maybe they should have just done, I don't know, 1 or 2 TV shows and then movies that aren't necessarily connected but are still in the Marvel universe. Like, I don't really care what they're building towards now because it's the end game. Is the end.
Yeah.
The end. What is it? The Spider-Man one afterwards was probably a good epilogue. We talked to see our Spider-Man episode for thoughts on no
right.
But yeah, it's like that was a good end cap or whatever. And then the rest could have just been, okay, here's more quirky characters in the Marvel universe, no connections. Maybe we see Thor again, which, I mean, this is that. But I think this one's bogged down by people expecting it to be a Marvel movie. And I don't mean they expect it to fulfill Marvel tropes, quip, yada yada. No, that's not what I mean. It's like, okay, I've seen Thor Love and Thunder. Now I can go see the next one and the next one. And then when Avengers Time Conquest comes out, I can say, I know exactly what's going on now. And it's like, I don't think we need that anymore. It's just like, I don't want to have to watch 3 different TV shows to go watch a movie. Especially since the theaters are struggling as it is. I don't need homework to do. If it's going to be homework, at least make it an interesting one. It's like, what is it? The best homework we've had is WandaVision, it's Loki, and Moon Knight. And even then, it's still homework.
Yeah. It's just homework that you don't resent doing as much as other homework.
Yeah.
It's
a little disheartening because shoot, they're on the top of the world. They're still, what is it? Endgame is still like number 2 in all of box office history, or is it number 1?
I think it's still number 2.
It's number 2 in box office history, and that's a testament to what is it? Hundreds and hundreds of people setting this whole thing up. And you can say it's again. I still kind of prefer Infinity War over Endgame, but still, it's like you can at least acknowledge it's like, this took a lot of effort and kudos, but they should have stopped. It's kind of hard to because it makes money, but they should have.
I was thinking about this. I was literally thinking about this earlier because I was thinking about something else. There's a great animated TV show, Gravity Falls, which is exactly 2 seasons long.
When are we doing a Gravity Falls episode, Jeff?
Well, and it was always planned to be 2 seasons long, and it tells a coherent, carefully constructed story to where you can watch the entire show, and then when you get to the end of it, you can go back and watch through and realize there's a bunch of stuff that's being seeded the entire time, that's being set up, but it's subtle, and it works really well because of that. Because the entire thing was a coherent story, 2 seasons long, intended to be 2 seasons long, and then at the end of it, they stopped. They told their story, it finished, and now it's done. As opposed to, and that was what was true from Iron Man up to Endgame, right? It was building into a coherent story. It was something where you could have all these little Easter eggs that are seeding in different things. It's all building up into something. But then they didn't stop. Right. Because Jack, you said that they're becoming like DC. That's not correct. It's worse than that. They're becoming Disney. Right? They're not becoming. They've gone from something that takes old stories that people like and and retells them in a fresh way. That's what Disney was famous for doing, right? They took old fairy tales and retold them in a fresh way that made them more universally enjoyable. Right? That's what the MCU was doing, and it was really good at it. And then they're like, well, now we have this giant pile of cash. I guess we're just going to keep doing this.
Give us more
until the end of time, right? Yeah. Without actually doing the thing that made it good in the first place.
Right.
So that's disappointing. It's not that Thor: Love and Thunder not being great is the end of the franchise. It's that it is indicative of the fact that this is something that has gone on longer than it probably should have.
Right.
It's gotten to the point where it's passable. And it's the fact that you can call a movie passable means that it's more product than movie. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
This is a quote. This is talking about the Assassin's Creed franchise, but this is very applicable here.
Oh boy!
The first couple games in the Assassin's Creed franchise felt like someone had a really interesting idea for a game that they really wanted to make, and then they made it, and then they did well. And then all of the new games in Assassin's Creed were not made because an artist had to create a vision. It's because quarterly profits were down, and they needed to put something out in order to make more money. And that's what the MCU feels like now. It's not. It's not someone has a creative vision for a good piece of art that happens to fit within the MCU. It's quarterly profits are down. We need to have another big output of Marvel stuff.
Quick time period and combat style. Go.
Right.
Egypt, bow and arrow. All right, good. We're good to go.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Make me want to talk about Assassin's Creed now.
Yeah. All right, well, we could do that later.
Only other thing I would mention, just specifically going back to Love and Thunder, is comparing this to Ragnarok. The one thing that I think worked with Ragnarok that failed with Love and Thunder, looking behind the scenes, one of the reasons I feel like Love and Thunder did not work was because despite having Taika Waititi directing both, he got somebody else to write Ragnarok. He got like 2 or 3 other people. And then this one, he decided to really take charge of the script and get somebody else to help him out. It's just like, he's written some good things. Like, I mean, I feel like he did What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People, stuff like that. But I guess when it comes to Marvel, he really should have stuck with the same writing team for Ragnarok, because I feel like that was a much better balance than Love and Thunder was. Much less tonal whiplash, as we already mentioned.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Do you know if did he solo write Jojo Rabbit?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one because that one was based off a novel, wasn't it?
It might have been, but I did like that movie.
I'm trying to think of his best work and think, oh man, is he a great director but a poor writer? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. With normally it's more writers, more problems, but. It seems to be the opposite here. Maybe he was too successful. Maybe it's just like, oh man,
might have gone to his head. Yeah,
I don't know. Well, maybe not necessarily gone to his head as much as like, oh, he doesn't need another writer. Let's just let him do it. And he's just like, okay, maybe I can do it. I don't know. I guess that's my
possibly
more optimistic take, but maybe it didn't go to his head. I mean, shoot, he won an Academy Award, didn't he?
I think so. I feel like ever since Ragnarok, he's sort of been very popular both as an actor and he's become way more of a celebrity, I'll just say, as an actor and a director. So I feel like going to his head, I would not be surprised. He's like, yeah, I'm Taika Waititi. I can do what I want. And so he, decides to take more creative control. And I feel like it might have been a bit too much control, but.
Yeah, I think that there is some truth to that as well. All right. Any other last minute thoughts, or should we wrap up with our number ratings?
Take us home, Joe.
All right. Well,
let's land this goat boat.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the screaming goats.
Oh yeah, the goats from the I would have thought that would have got annoying after a while, but it was a good running gag.
It actually is interesting because Thor in Norse mythology actually has a pair of goats that pull his chariot thing.
Oh, that's funny.
And the goats are magical, so he can kill them and eat them, and then they regenerate. And so they're
oh yeah, that's right. He said we'll use them for meat, people and things.
Yeah. Yep. So that was funny. Anyway, that was neither here nor there. I would say I would give Ragnarok a 7, and I'll give Thor: Love and Thunder a 6. That's as my rankings out of 10.
All right. I was pleasantly surprised once again with Ragnarok. I remember liking it in theater, getting to rewatch it now. Forgot how much fun I had with it. I definitely plan on rewatching again in the future. Definitely one of my favorite Marvel films. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And with Love and Thunder, going back and forth between a 7 and a 6. The more we talk about it, especially after this episode, probably sticking with a 6 at this point. It's probably better than Dark World, but I wouldn't say by much.
Oh, dang! That's almost like an Eternals was better in my book. It's like, oh,
I
man,
would go there.
That's the ultimate insult. No, not really. Yeah, I think Ragnarok is definitely one of the greats. I'd give that one an 8.5, and then what is it? This one is, I mean, it's there. It's unfortunately it suffers from Doctor Strange 2 syndrome in the sense that I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind if I don't see it again.
Yeah.
Actually, no. I'd be more inclined to see this again in any setting than Doctor Strange 2. So because of that, it's a 6.5. Sorry, Love and Thunder is a 6.5.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Alrighty. Well, that has been our thoughts on the entirety of Thor and also the current state of the MCU just as a franchise. If you've been listening this long, we appreciate it. And if not, hey, you haven't missed very much. And we're looking forward to talking to you next time on the next episode of Background Noise.
Dude, I loved it when Gore started goring all over those guys with his necro gore or whatever it's called.